virtual motorsports is now. This September, the heart of sim racing beats in Chicagoland as the Sim Gaming Expo takes over the Schaumburg Convention Center, September 5th through the 7th. Go wheel to wheel in our competition area, test the latest gear, meet top brands, creators, and celebrate with fellow sim racing enthusiasts. Whether you're a seasoned sim racer or new to the sport, this is your chance to be part of history. To purchase tickets and see the full exhibitor lineup, visit SimGamingExpo.com.
Live from iRacing's virtual Rockingham Speedway in Rockingham, North Carolina, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 6 of the 2025 Premier Sim Racing Sim Gaming Expo Truck Series. It is a Wednesday night, and that means that we're happy that you're hanging out with us on Green Flag TV. With our producer downstairs, as always, Dustin Ollis, and myself, Evan Posocco, and Derrick Watson in the broadcast booth. Excited for another attempt here at The Rock. A much anticipated trip after a little bit of a schedule shuffle, Derrick, and it'll be a really tricky track here tonight that kicks off the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And, of course, The Rock is one of those names I think, Evan, really is a generational thing now, of course. You know, if you say The Rock, a lot of people think about Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, the final boss, whatever moniker he wants to use. Some people think of the movie with Sean Connery back in the 90s. And long-time NASCAR fans think of this track right here, Rockingham Speedway. It's trying to make a resurgence, and it has tonight for the Hyperion Racing 183. Look at this, only 3 races left afterwards. Charlotte, Nashville, and Michigan. So I think, Evan, if you're a short track racer, those skills are done for the season.
Yeah, if you feel like that's your forte, I hope that you got your money's worth out of them over the course of the earlier races, the Bristols, the Dovers, and those have come and gone. Some of those skills may come into play here at Rockingham, even though it is a 1-mile D-shaped oval, but it is going to be a lot of high-speed racing for the final 3 races of the season in Charlotte, Nashville, and Michigan. As always, 2 different championships that we are following over the course of the year, and it starts with the Driver Championship. A drop week is upcoming. That's going to shuffle things a little bit as it'll take out all of these drivers' worst result. We'll see if that shuffles up the running order in the coming weeks, but at least coming into this evening, it is no surprise that it is Richard Elregan Jr. He is leading the Driver Championship, and that is courtesy of the 3 race wins he's got so far in 5 starts.
Yeah, see that right there. Bradley Holly, Ted Lowendick, Mark Kalin, Steve Loving. This will be the last time we'll see these points without the drop week involved. So we'll see how this shakes out, not only after tonight's race, but after that drop takes effect. Now, that said, on the team side of the points, there is no drop week. So this will be much different moving forward. Whataback Racing still up there at 394. Sol Peck is in second, 363. There's Regan Bogue Motorsports, 330. I think Richard helped close the gap last week with that win. You see on back, Regan Bogue, Neon, Developmental, Grinds, Miracle Flow, and then rounded only down to top 10 by Tabe Rossi Esports. So still some points up for grab. The team title has a bit of a gap in it, though.
Yeah, you're starting to see some separation, and just know if you've been able to build those kind of gaps over the course of the first 5 weeks, you can certainly lose some of those gaps over the course of the next 4. Yes, we are getting down to crunch time, but there is still a lot that can happen in the second half of the season. Well, as we get set to go racing tonight, I want to say thanks to the folks, as always, who make tonight's coverage possible, and it starts at the top with our presenting sponsors for the season, the Sim Gaming Expo. Get ready for the ultimate simulation gaming experience. The Sim Gaming Expo is bringing all genres of simulation and technology under one roof. Join us September 5th through 7 in Chicagoland at the Schaumburg Convention Center to try out the latest gear from the biggest brands in the industry, meet your favorite streamers, and celebrate your passion for simulation with our incredible community. Don't miss out. Get your tickets at SimGamingExpo.com and be a part of Sim Gaming history.
And also want to thank tonight's race sponsor, the Hyperion Racing 183 is sponsored by Hyperion Racing. Hyperion Racing is a top-tier esports team competing at the highest level of sports car racing on the iRacing service. With a strong focus on endurance and team-based events, they are built for performance and driven by result. Now, while sport cars are their arena, oval racing is also in their blood, Evan. They're from bull rings to super speedways. They love to bring precision, strategy, and competitive fire to every track on the service. Hyperion Racing is proud to support the inaugural 2025 Truck Series season at Premier Sim Racing. It's a new chapter they're excited to be part of. Visit HyperionRacing.gg for more info.
So big thanks to them for being a part of tonight's coverage as we are in qualifying right now here at The Rock. Practice came to a close just a little bit ago, and over the course of the hour-and-a-half long session, fastest man in town was James O'Brien, 24:009. Robert Barney, Mark Kalin, Ted Lowendick, Bradley Holly, the top five. In practice, we'll see if that carries through into qualifying. Right now, Robert Barney sits top of the board. First time I've seen all day, sub 24. Can anybody top a 23.990?
Yeah, that'll be the question. Doug Evans is going to try right here. Man, look at just you can see it in the camera and how that truck is moving around. This is a bumpy, aggressive racetrack. Abrasive might be a better word than aggressive, actually. Just look at the way that truck's moving around. This will be a really wild night of racing, but man, he has moved up and down the lanes when trying to qualify here at Rockingham.
This is a rough surface as these drivers are going to be hard-pressed to keep those same lanes lap after lap, but certainly in the qualifying session, you hope to go a one and done and get a fast one. Barney's time has been topped. Bradley Holly now goes live to the top of the board with just under 2 minutes left on the clock. He sits with a 23.978. Is there anybody left out there? Well, Richard Regan just hit the track right now. The number 56 struck his first lap in the books, slowest overall, but he is obviously looking for a big pickup in lap number 2.
Yeah, you would think if anyone could cover it, it would be Richard. So we'll see if we can get a camera shot of Richard's run in just a moment here. But man, this is a historic track. There's Richard. Let's watch a bit of a new sponsor this week, Kaylee's Sweet Cupcakes. Now, Evan, this is your second season of these drivers across different leagues. I've been around for a couple years now. I keep getting tempted with these cupcakes, and nothing has come of it yet. So I'm a little, I don't know if I'm gaslit by the fact there's that logo on the truck, but yeah, I'm a little annoyed.
Times made some bets on some shows as we go on to board with Lowendick here, and you can see all of the counter steer that he's got to put into that number 13 machine as he comes off of the corners. Or, you know, if there's a food-related sponsor on a car, I've made bets on the broadcast that, you know, if one wins over the other, that's what I would be going for, a late post-race dessert. So I am certainly a fan of delicacies and some sweet treats on the cars. It's always fun to see all the different brands and partners that these drivers have brought into the conversation and have on their race cars. Is Ted Lowendick going to go 25 on speed? That was his last flying lap. And just taking a quick browse around with 20 seconds left on the board, Derrick, I don't see any other cars that would be eligible to get a lap time in.
No, this seems like this might be the run here. Oh, look, there's Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Myers. Of course, they're hidden at every racetrack. It's somewhere on the iRacing services. It's sort of a manhunt or an Easter egg hunt to go find him. Well, our producer, Dustin Ollis, just found him right there in the camera shot.
Do you have a favorite hidden spot for the Dale and Steves?
Man, there's so many. I think the further away they are, the more fun it is to find them. Some of them, they're like right inside the pit wall. I like the ones that are pretty far out there. I think I want to say in Indianapolis, they're somewhere down by the snake pit, I think, but I don't remember.
I agree with you. I think the more obscure, the better. But qualifying has drawn to a close. Let's go trackside and take a look at your Profit Python starting grid here in Rockingham. But Bradley Holly is able to hang on to pole. His Whataback Racing truck will bring us to the green. He'll be joined alongside of the Regenbogen Developmental 26 of Robert Barney. Row number 2, number 3 starter tonight, the number 56, Richard Regan Jr. He's next to the 48 of Thomas Sink in 4th. Back on row number 3, P5 starter, the number 2 truck of Steve Baker. And to the outside, your number 6 starter, the 38 of James O'Brien. Back on row 4, it is the number 16 of Dustin Bumgarner rolling from 7th. And to the outside, the 13 of Ted Lowendick from P8. And on row number 5, P9 starter, the 63 of Drew Wilkie. And rounding out your top 10, the 41 of Doug Evans.
Going to move back into row number 6, P11, Colton Lane, part of Whataback Racing, is lined up next to Reese Bogue, part of Regan Bogue Motorsports Neon. P13 is Jeff Evan, one of the Miracle Flow drivers in this race, with Matt Scherf on his outside in P14. P15 is Steve Loving with Colton Easterday back in P16. That's row number 8. Row number 9, Andrew Sharp into 24 with Mike Trimmer into 42. Those are just backwards numbers there. Jacob Dunn into number 3, Tabe Rossi Esports is in 19th with Nick Hunter back in P20.
And continuing on 21st spot, Nick Schwartz is going to start alongside the 11 of Stevie DeBruner in 22nd. 23rd on the grid, Zachary Burnt. 24th will go to Nathan Deering. Behind them in the number 25 spot, the 71 is Stacy Hunter, going to be riding shotgun next to Jacob Watson in the number 9 truck. 27th to Zachary Williams. 28th position to Mark Kalin. The rest of the times based without a time at qualifying. So 29th will be Brandon Walter. Doyle Lawrence, 30th. Evan Williams, 31st. Patrick Cowgill in 32nd. That's a look top to bottom at your Profit Python starting grid. Every second counts on the track and in making money. Like a perfect pit stop, the right deal at the right time means big profits. Introducing Profit Python, the ultimate Discord for deal hunters and side hustlers. Get blazing fast alerts on price drop, secret sales, and hidden jackpots before anybody else. The race to profit is on. Don't get left in the dust. Join now at whop.com. That's WHOP.com/Profit Python. Profit Python. Strike fast, profit faster. Well, the lights are out. On top of the pace car, we are set for tonight's Hyperion Racing 183. Bradley Holly still looking for his first race win of the season, but the lights will go back on. They're going to extend it. We'll continue for one more trip around, Derrick. So we got all of our ad reads in. We got through the whole starting grid, and now we've got a bunch of free time.
We do. So I think
we tried.
Probably to talk about some of the keys of this race. And I think the key of the race is going to be changing the mindset of the driver. Evan, very commonly at Rockingham, passes are not made on the bottom here. And that's so different compared to most tracks we commentate at, or that people drive at, where you make a pass on the bottom and it works. Here, that bottom is so bumpy, it's so abrasive, and it's just better to make passes on the outside. So for some drivers, if they can't figure that out tonight, it's going to be a long, long night at the Rock.
Is it going to be a long night? Is it going to be a heartache for some? Some drivers have expressed some concern on trying to make it through this race. It's a rough and tough surface. We'll see if it's a rough and tough action, and we're happy that you're with us as always. So Bradley Holly in search of race to win number 1. Same with Robert Barney. They both got a good look at this one. They start ahead of everybody else. Regan Jr., Sink, Baker, the rest of the cars inside of the top 5. Let's go racing in Rockingham. First lap going to be in the books without fireworks. Some 2 wide, 3 wide for a moment behind the leaders, but up front, Holly leads after lap number 1. Here's the chaos middle of it all around P14.
Wow, look at this big just conglomerate of trucks all across this track, all across the back straight. Everyone's trying to look for a move. There's Bumgarner to the inside of James O'Brien. And you see Doug Evans up top. So a lot of drivers here are going to want to make moves fast, Evan, because as we said, this track is abrasive. It's tough on tires. So people will be eager to make those passes early to make sure they get some made. And look, there's a pass for the lead.
A new race leader, a quick pass on the inside of the racetrack. Robert Barney goes underneath Bradley Holly. Also, Patrick Cowgill down pit road early in this one. What is the issue with the number 31 truck? It's off cycle. We stay green. No trouble on the racetrack, at least. But as the race leaders pass by the pit lane, they're going to put the 31 to Cowgill at least one lap down. Now, Regan trying to get in on the action. He was able to make a move on Bradley Holly for second. Can he go all the way for the race lead, looking on the inside of the 2-6?
Well, quick race update. Patrick Cowgill, for the moment, has disconnected from the race. So that's not just a pit stop. That is maybe a permanent pit stop. We'll see if we can keep an eye on that and what may come of that. But Robert Barney's doing a great job. But these fastest laps, look at him taking off lap by lap. Evan, last couple of times by was Richard Regan. This time is Dustin Bumgarner. So drivers are pushing hard at the start of this race here.
No surprise, you're going to want to be aggressive early in this race, and we've seen that up front with a couple of lead changes already. Bradley Holly was only able to enjoy the one single lap lead up front, but he has been able to get back ahead of Regan, so it is Robert Barney 1, Bradley Holly 2, Richard Regan 3 for the time being. Behind them, Thomas Sink still 4th, Steve Baker still 5th. Nothing's changed with the 48 and the 2. They ride exactly where they started. Behind them, quietly, Ted Lowendick. He's picked up 2 spots. That 13 truck on the outside lane into the number 6 spot.
Yeah, doing a great job. Look, it's already single filed out. It's probably, 10, 11, oh, maybe 20 trucks in a row. We saw that blue truck in the back. He hit the wall and kind of swung off of it. Was that the 5? Or was the 5? It was the 5. And Nathan Deering, that's what I thought it was. But he hit the wall hard. And this is one of those tracks, Evan, when you hit the wall, it sort of just throws you back into it. It doesn't really suck you in. It doesn't, hold on to you and hug you like some walls do. This one will bounce you back across the track pretty easily.
Yeah, and this is not a very wide racetrack either, so any sort of truck bouncing off of the wall or having some sort of an issue in traffic means that it is going to stack things up pretty quickly. Speaking of stack it up, they're backing up on each other a little bit there. Also a battle for the race lead up front on the inside and through. Second time, good as gold. And this time it will be a new race leader in favor of Richard Regan. Able to make the move on the inside of Barney. And at lap number 9, your points leader out in clean air.
Yeah, your points leader is looking for his 3rd win of the season here. Remember, he won last week. Pretty convincing fashion. And now starting to pull away from Robert Barney. Look at that gap form already. So right now, if you're Robert Barney, I think you just got to do what you can to try to stay close. Like, don't let him pull away. Try and make the move as he goes a little bit up top there and see if you can kind of stay right there in contention.
It's all about just hanging there. Richard Regan's got the speed. He wants to go up there. I don't think it makes much sense for the likes of Barney, Holling, and others to try to deny that, but drop back in line, continue at your pace, and hope that this race can continue under green flag conditions. Some side-by-side off of the back straightaway, now down into turn number 3. It's all around the 3 truck there at Jacob Dunn. He's on the outside there, but 95. Colton Easterday on the inside. This battle for 15th and 16th, and a 3rd truck watching on. That's the green 171, and Nicholas Schwartz. Does he put it in the center 3 wide? He entered low behind the 95 at Easterday, kind of washed up there. Thought we were going to go 3 by. Instead, it stays 2 by 2 for now, but he keeps looking. I think maybe that's a little bit more just how that 171 takes the corner with a bit of a wash up in the center.
Yeah, so this is how this corner behaves. I mean, there's a lot to this track. This track is aged, and the scan we have in iRacing of this track is, it's an older scan. I think the track's been kind of repaved or smoothed out since then, and we don't have that version. So this really is just kind of rough to race, and so the trucks do move around pretty naturally here, right? You're gonna see a lot of up and down movement, a lot of back and forth. As now we're on board here with Schwartz, and he's kind of fallen back a little bit here from that move he tried to make a 3 wide a moment ago.
Here's the onboard perspective for Schwartz, and again, did a good job there and not needed a ton of counter steer. We'll see how smooth he could handle turns 3 and 4. But you can just see how the truck rocks around, no pun intended, and how tricky it is to really keep it to the outside wall, like you can a bit better at some of the other racetracks where you see the outside lane beat option. You think of the Kansases of the world, the Homestead, but they're not nearly as rough as this place is, so you can't quite hold it up there with the same amount of precision. A lot of people trying to kind of apex it high in the corner, and they'll kind of duck down off the wall a little bit by the time they get to corner exit. There's a look at the 63. That's Drew Wilkie. He's in the number 8 spot. Trying to make a move on Dustin Bumgarner for P7.
Oh, boy, that got close. I thought for sure they were going to make contact, and they do. There it is. Around it goes. Bumgarner yellows out. That contact was kind of just forming for a while in that moment.
Sometimes you can see it coming in right place at the right time for our cameras, wrong place at the wrong time for Dustin to Bumgarner, and we'll wait to a second perspective, but the look we had is going to be tough to beat there, Derrick. It seemed pretty obvious, at least from the perspective that 63 truck was on the inside. Drew Wilkie can only go so low, and for whatever reason, the 16 started coming down the hill. Now, again, we've been talking about a rough racetrack. We've been talking about a lot of people kind of apexing in the middle of the corner a little bit high and then kind of ducking down, right, turning down into the corner to get off. So I don't know if that was just the 16 taking his line, thinking maybe the 63 wouldn't be there, or if the truck got a little bit loose and he was chasing it down the hill a bit. But it seemed to me like Wilkie held his line on the bottom and the 16 came down. And unfortunately for the 16, Bumgarner is the one who pays the price. That was a pretty good lick into the outside wall. Here we go.
Yeah, let's watch again. You're right. I mean, Wilkie's not necessarily against the yellow. I mean, he does get down there towards the middle. You're right. Nope, you're right. He is down the yellow at the point of contact. And again, unless you want a Wilkie to get down on the apron, I don't know what more Drew Wilkie could have done in that moment. And
this is a very aggressive apron to racetrack transition, right? There's a lot of racetracks, that are more when you talk about just straight banking to the flat. But again, with how rough it is, you really don't want to put the left side tires down on the apron, just because it's not necessarily going to, bottom out the truck like at some other places, but it's enough of a difference that thing's going to get really sideways. And I think that's going to put them in a bit of an uncomfortable position. Well, we're under the first yellow flag of the day. Let's take a look back to what happened a week ago with a look at our Mr. Hedge iRacing photography race recap as we look back at some of the best sights from round number 5 at Kansas, where Richard Regan Jr. picked up race win number 3 on the season. Mr. Hedge iRacing photography, sim racing is full of unforgettable moments. Make sure you capture them with Mr. Hedge iRacing photography. From action shots of your first win to slick stills of your favorite livery, or even crash you'll never live down, we turn your races into memories worth sharing. Simple, sharp, and made just for sim racers. Check out mrhedge.co.uk and get your best moments in focus. Mr. Hedge iRacing photography, capture the race, relive the moment. And going to be a lot of reliving of those moments so far for Richard Regan. The burnouts on the front stretch, Derrick, that's a common sight we've been seeing this season.
Yeah, it always feels good to have those moments. And look at those beautiful photos. You should go check out Mr. Hedge for any moments you have in iRacing. This is a great opportunity to get those fancy photos. You can use them as desktop backgrounds, phones, whatever you want. But it's a pretty cool service. Well, speaking of pretty cool, Richard Regan seems pretty cool and calm, but he has chosen the top lane for the restart here.
Interesting decision. The majority of your race leaders decide to stay out. Only 2 trucks down pit road. Jacob Dunn and Stephen DeBruner in for service. Everybody else still on the tires that they started with. 19 laps in the books. Green flag back in the air.
I'll tell you what, while Richard Regan may have pulled ahead pretty quickly here, look at this Hornet's Nest back here. You see Doug Evans back there. There's Steve Loving back there. And it's pretty crazy in the back of the field. This part right here looks pretty calm. Got 1 truck to the inside, but overall, this is pretty good here as far as being calm. But look at that back there. That's where it gets crazy. You see Mike Chirmer's back there, Steve Loving, James O'Brien's back there, Colton Lane is back there. These guys are fighting for every spot, every second.
And James O'Brien is somebody who doesn't want to be in this mix. That red and black 38 Chevrolet on the bottom started way up in the number 6 spot, and by far and large has lost more spots in this race than anybody else still on the racetrack. So the team hype machine needs a little bit of help. He's going to stay 14th for the moment, finding a spot single file in line, but wanting to turn something around. Completely different story for the truck ahead of him. The blue number 5 and Nathan Deering started 24th. He is up 11 spots to 13th, so he's having a great night so far.
Seen Zach Burton back of that photo in the wall a couple times. Watch this here. Oh, and again, luckily for him, this wall is more of a bouncer, evidence. It's a really weird, phenomenon across racing and iRacing. Some walls really tend to kind of bounce you off and let you keep going. Some walls kind of grab onto you and hug you and sort of just smother you. Luckily for Burnt, this wall is more of a bouncer. I'll tell you what, we saw a bunch of wall bouncing on Monday night when the High Tide Racing League raced here on Green Flag TV in the new ARCA cars. There was a lot of bouncing off the walls. Those cars are a little bit harder to handle maybe than these trucks. So I'm curious to see if we have as much wall action as we do on Monday night. But hold on, speaking of action, there's Doug Evans. There is Jeff Evans, father, son, both slow, no caution.
Not a duo you want, and you can see there's going to be a penalty flag there for Doug Evans. He'll be displayed the black and orange flag, which means that truck is going to be forced to come to pit road for repairs. That's a surprising one. You very rarely see those in an incident that doesn't lead to a yellow, but it was enough of a hit to the outside. He's going to have to come down pit road no matter what. So he is in for service as this race stays green. Here's a second look at what happened on the big picture top of your screen. Just a little bit hot into the corner, gets into the back of the 51 machine, and then there's that second hit back up the hill is the one that causes the damage. Jeff Evans, on the other hand, has continued to race on. Did lose some spots in the exchange, but seemingly still at pace and with no damage.
Yeah, it looked like Jeff had to check up for the truck in front of him, and maybe Doug was not aware of that scenario and kind of got in the back of Jeff, and then contact and calamity happened from there. So Doug Evans down pit road. We'll see how long that takes. Probably a little bit of time to get that truck fixed. If he had that black and orange that we often call a meatball flag, we'll see if he can get back on track and earn some points and gain some spots. But right now, on track, Thomas Sink in that grinds machine is doing everything he can to run down our race leader.
He wants to make this one a show, and he has yet to lead a lap so far in this race. It was Bradley Holly, your pole sitter, led lap number 1. Robert Barney took over for the next 7, and then since lap number 9, it had been all Richard Regan. There's that other perspective again, top of your screen at the contact and into the outside wall. But unlike on the previous run, Regan not really able to get away much. Look at this, top 6, 7 cars all lined up. There's a look off of the back of your leader. Look into that orange 48 Chevrolet of Thomas Sink in second. Started this race in 4th. Has been able to make moves on Holly and Barney, and hasn't really put a threat up yet to Regan in terms of a challenge for the race lead, but is doing a good job pacing the truck in P1, showing that he's got the speed to be competitive.
Yeah, lap by lap, these trucks in top 3, maybe top 4, are less than 1/10 of a second apart in lap time. There's really no gain and loss lap by lap. Everyone kind of gains on one, loses on the other. But I think it's just going to be a fact that, here we are a few laps in now. No one's pitted. These tires have worn off, and I think it's kind of leveled the playing field, to use that analogy a little bit, and kind of done that. But Thomas Sink is trying hard here. He wants to get up there, lead that race, and do the best he can. And back to the field, this is going to be Colton Lane in that Valvoline machine, right in front of Nick Schwartz in the 171. Let's watch Lane's line here. So if you're racing it by yourself, you do kind of want to get down there. I would prefer to be down a little bit more in the corners and then kind of angle it back out. I know I said no passing on the bottom likely here tonight, Evan, but you can still get down there and cut a corner and make up some lap time by yourself.
Yeah, it's difficult to complete a pass there on the inside because if you're side by side with somebody, you don't get that full arc down into the corner. If you're on your own, though, you can go high to low and try to do your best. As look out there, the 26 pushed up, and that was Barney. almost take it out. The 48 a sink in second, and he had to obviously, I think, check up or just scrubbed off so much tires and speed getting tight on exit that it's opened up the door for the 184, and your pole sitter Bradley Holly is trying to bounce back. He picks the inside. Does the 2 Steve Baker behind pick the outside? But a wall there for the 2-6. Do they touch almost in the center of the corner?
Good grief. Bradley Holly almost came right up in your living room right there with that camera shot. Just almost invaded your monitor, your phone, or whatever you're watching on. That was a pretty cool camera shot. But I mean, listen, Brad's no stranger to winning. He's won numerous hundreds of times across leagues, knows how to get it done. But it does seem like he's having a hard time with Robert Barney right now. And I'm not sure if it's because he's trying to get to the inside or if he's just trying to maybe save some equipment. But look at him here. Turned his head a little bit. He's checking out a separate screen or something else going on. But again, maybe the best salesman as far as decor in all of iRacing. Evan, every week, that room and the smart lights match the color of the truck. Always shows off the equipment and the gear. But if we go back to the first camera shot, I got to call this out because I got talked to about this last week after the race. Brad thought we would notice that he moved some of the Lego sets in the background. Evan, do you notice any difference in where the Lego sets are positioned?
The quantity of the Lego is so overwhelming that unless we played a spot the difference game and had a screenshot up of 1 week and a screenshot up of the next week, we don't have this camera up long enough for me to process where they all are and what they all are.
Yeah, I agree. He was really proud of himself, said he moved a couple things around. And listen,
he's talking about the helmets.
Yeah, he's been buying those. He bought, I think, 2 or 3 new sets. Was actually sitting there on Sunday watching the Cup race, and while building Lego, actually was smoking meat on his. Have you seen the picture of his big smoker he has in the backyard? It's like restaurant level smoker that man has at his house.
That's next level, and that's impressive. I just worked up the courage to do grilled barbecue chicken on the grill, and it's chicken, so you don't want to die if you undercook it. I just mustered up that the last week. It came out good, by the way, so I am very much dipping my toes in on the grilling side, but smoking meats I know is like a passion for a lot of people. It's way more advanced than I can muster up right now. Maybe one day we'll get there.
Maybe one day. Well, I'll tell you what, and Brad Holly has one, Steve Loving has one. They were showing up in the Discord a couple weeks ago, so there's plenty of advice to be had in the PSR Discord if you're into smoking meat, you want to try it out. But looking here back in the battle for 16th, this is Nick Hunter, Brandon Walter, Matt Scherf's back here, Evan Williams, Mike Toomer, Stacey Hunter. It's a pretty big battle going on here. I want to give a shout out to James Morgan, not able to race tonight, off with a family vacation, so only 2 of the 3 Top Rossi Esports drivers are here. Brian Tope out for the season, by the way, so a couple of drivers missing for different reasons.
Yeah, and you see highlighted this battle for 5th position ongoing. It's a notable one because it's kind of where there's a bit of a divide. Those top 4 trucks slowly but surely pulling away just a bit from Steve Baker P5 on back as Ted Lowendick wants to keep the pressure up. He's up a couple of spots into the number 6 position. So as we see those leaders on this long run, we've kind of now matched the amount of laps we did. Oh, I almost said it. The yellow came out. My next word was going to be, our next sentence was going to be, since the first yellow. We had gone just about equally as long off of the restart as we did on the first run before the dreaded C word, and there it is, caution flag number 2, and that 6 car of Evan Williams had some help off of 2.
Yeah, got that blue truck up top, up in the wall, and came back down and sort of clobbered him. Nowhere for him to go. Evans is sort of an innocent bystander in that moment. In fact, probably had no time to process what happened, so I'm sure pit stops will happen this time by, Evan. We've now gone about 43 laps between the caution and the green flag laps we've run. I think we're being told Mount Scherf may have been the truck up top here. Yep, there it is. Watch him up out of the corner. Gets a little too high, slaps the wall, back down right in front of Mike Toomer Jr. Did a great job of avoiding that wreck.
And in the end, the contact not as bad as it could have been. This racetrack, like some others, if you get a little bit high on the exit, you're in no man's land. Not even lifting out of the throttle or feathering it can save you. Oh, an issue there on pit road. The 48, though, Thomas Sink comes down in the number 2 spot, but he was too deep in the box. So he has to back it up, and that's going to put him behind the 8 ball compared to everybody else. Richard Regan going to pull out. How many spots will it cost Sink in the end? It's Regan 1, Holly 2, Barney 3rd off, Baker 4th, Sink at a -3, as he will stay inside of the top 5.
You saw the notification up top, Jacob Watson in divine penalty. We'll talk about that in a second. Watch this wreck right here. That's just how close it is. Nice avoidance again. But I believe Jacob Watson entered the pits a lap too early, Evan. I think he got excited about the caution coming out and tried to get down to pit road and entered a closed pit. So that's the reason for that penalty. And that was different than the penalty that should be handed out for the contact as well. So keep that in mind. Richard Regan, again, has chosen the top lane. This time has a new truck to the inside. Bradley Holly will be on the inside. And I'm curious about this, Evan, because for me, restarting on the outside in P2 under the new restart zone rules, to me, is one of the hardest skills of all racing. Keeping pace speed, keep an eye on your competitor to the left side and trying to match that start. I wonder if it gets any easier if the truck's on the outside. Now you get a better visual view of them, I think. I wonder if it's easier for Bradley Holly to start on the inside than the outside of row 1.
And I think your screen setup can help too, right? Unless you sag back and give the other truck like a half truck length advantage to see when they fire off. You can't see them if they're not next to you unless you've got triple monitors, or if you're using the in-sim ability to look to your left, look to your right. That's the trickiest part. Look at the 184. Give it about a half a truck length. That's going to make it a little bit easier to see when the 56 fires off. Green flag in the air. Still no surprise. The advantage is up top. Riga to clear for the lead. A short challenge for second from Steve Baker. He'll tuck in line. Holly will stay P2.
Again, everyone's going to try and get single file, but it's going to be a more aggressive racing this time. Remember, we have fresh tires for the first time in 40-some laps, so some drivers are going to try to make some moves. There's Ted Lowendick trying to make the move on Reese Bode. You see there with the gummy cluster on the front of the truck. I think he's maybe... No, he's not going to get that past me. I thought maybe he's going to get on the outside, but having a hard time here. It's Ted Lowendick. Now they're almost side by side out of the corner. There's some more battles up front here.
Side by side in a battle for second and third as the Richard Regan machine continues to pull further away. Holly, the man under fire. Baker was there. Barney was there. The 26 truck backs off just a little bit. Maybe more of a battle now for fourth and fifth behind. And that's our fault. We put the cameras on it. The battle simmered down. There's a challenge behind them, though. That's the 13 machine. Lowendick trying to go to the inside on sync for P5 and 6. Ted Lowendick just seems to be aging like fine wine, getting better as this race goes on.
That Nathan Deering, I think I saw smoke the wall back there in the back of that camera shot. I believe it was, a big puff of smoke as we looked in the back. Then this is the second time Nathan Deering's already hit the wall this evening. So Nathan and the wall maybe sort of becoming like on a first name basis here as this night goes on. But Ted Lowendick's doing a great job here, making his way through the field car by car, just trying to stay calm and patient. Meanwhile, back is Andrew Sharp in that red, white, and blue with the... I've been trying to describe this font for weeks, Evan, and I don't know this number font. If this is more... I don't know how to describe it. New age, or... how do you describe that 24 in the font right there? Do you have a word for it? Different? Different is a word that comes to mind.
It's not minimalist, because minimalist would just be a bunch of vertical and horizontal lines that vaguely make up the letters that he's representing. And futuristic.
Stencil?
Cyber? I don't know.
Yeah, futuristic, maybe stencil style. I don't know. But yeah, it's a cool look. I like it. It's different, which makes it stand out. But yeah, it's a look he's gone for this season to Andrew Sharp. There's Steve Loving inside. That's a retro.
The opposite.
Look at the 3 wide. Oh, buddy. 3 wide at Rockingham. Maybe not as hard as Darlington per se, Evan, but still not a place I want to be.
Yeah, Reese Bogue paid the price. He was the one that was into the outside wall on the exited turn number 2. That's going to cost the 4 truck several spots. He was 11th. He'll probably be 17th, if not worse, this time by the start-finish line. So he's the one who took the beating there as the old school look at Microsoft Toyota came through. Here's one more look from high above. The three wide kind of came up quick there. And again, the four's out of the throttle completely there. But when you've jumped the cushion, you've jumped the cushion. You can't do anything about it. You're in no man's land there on exit. Second time we've seen somebody in that wall on that spot in the last couple of laps.
Well, all three drivers right there should be stoked that they made it through that, because that got close a couple times with shorts in the middle to something bad happening. But they've gone on through, and you see there the Whataback logo on the back of the truck. This is the battle for second. This is Bradley Holly. We're looking back on the Steve Banker, Robert Barney, Ted Lowendick, Nathan Deering, Thomas Sink on back. But bad news for these guys. A few laps ago, Richard Regan threw down the fastest lap of the race.
And it's not just the midfield that's got the action. It's going on up front as well. This is a big gaggle of trucks from about second place all the way down through seventh, if not more. There is no separation. Here's a move for third. Barney trying to go to the inside of the two of Baker. Baker with the Uno reverse. Says, I'm not on the attack. I'm moving forward. Tried to get to the outside of Holly. That one didn't work either, though. Good piece of driving by the 184. And now it's Lowendick and the 5 at Nathan Deering. So everywhere you look, somebody's making moves, and all of this fighting is music to the ears of Regan up front, because the harder these trucks are going to race each other, I think the better it's going to be for the leader as he tries to continue to pull away.
Yeah, and remember what you said earlier. This is a shorter track, right? I think this is important to say. There's always going to be a moment tonight where someone is near someone. This is Nathan Deering, by the way. We've talked about him in the past, having the car parts and the Sports Illustrated cover and all the cool memorabilia in there, just sitting in the VR headset, just stoked and happy. Looks, I'd be happy if I was running up here right now in P. He's got the 5 car in P5. Oh, hold on. Whoa, maybe up now to P4 after Barney just got loose.
Yeah, Barney a little bit loose there in the 26 truck. That's going to drop him back. He was 4th at the stripe. He's going to be 8th position. So it's halfway to the race lead, a difference right there, and that 26 is still struggling. Looked like he was out of the gas way earlier than anybody else that time at one. Got hit again by the 95. There's a replay of what happened on the top. Got a little bit sideways. It was a great save. Oh, now trouble. There he goes. Into the wall. He's going to collect Andrew Sharp. Is the 24 going to get more damage? No, the field slices and dices through without further incident, but that was a lap and a half to forget if you were Robert Barney, and it all fell apart into 3.
Yeah, this sort of boiled over for a while. See, there's one hit right there from Easter Day, and there's I don't know if that's contact or not, to be honest with you, but boy, that's a weird angle. As we saw everything go on down, you see Toomer did a great job avoiding it in the very bottom. All things considered, when you get a truck that was turned around that way and sort of sideways and bouncing around at Rockingham, that had every right to be about 1,000,000 times worse than what it really was.
Yeah, what I was waiting for was another truck to come in. There's the look. I mean, they get together for sure. And then right there, Sharp gets a little bit of it, and I thought right here we were going to be looking at a big mess. He locked it down, and again, credit to the rest of the field for finding a way by. Sharp gets away with almost nothing. Same can't be said for Barney, who made pretty significant contact with the outside wall. No surprise, despite the fact that we did the first caution flag of the race, we didn't see a lot of the leaders come in. It took till about 40-something laps on the tires for them to pit. No surprise, they follow suit this time. Most of your leaders stay out, and a couple of cars in at the tail end. Under the yellow, we'll take a quick opportunity to get a word from one of our sponsors as we go side by side. And back live from the Rock as the green flag is back in the air. Just under 45 minutes left to go in today's race. Race leader still well out in front. Regan Jr. with another good restart. Deering and Holly, once again, they spar for P2.
Once again, sparring is the right word. It's been sparring all night long. Punch, counter punch, jab, and everything else. They're trying the best they can. Look at Steve Baker trying to get his way in line, and does right in front of Ted Lowendick. Now, what I start to wonder from this point of the race, Evan, now we're on yet another restart, is as a driver, have you yet adjusted your mentality about how to race? We had a couple very good green flag runs, and you start to think, hey, this is going to go green for a while. I'll calm down. I'll get patient. I'll maybe save some tires. But then you get back-to-back cautions like we just had, and now I wonder if some drivers start to kind of get impatient and push the envelope, scared that that might be the trend of the night.
In all of the runs, despite the fact that the 3 yellow flags that we've seen tonight have all been, I would say, somewhat different, right? It's not like it's been the same wreck in the same spot every single time. But all 3 green flag runs that we've had so far tonight, Derrick, have almost all been exactly 20 laps in distance. So obviously we haven't pitted every single time, so it's not quite as simple as, hey, after 20 laps, the tires just start to fall off. But if you want to put your Larry Mack hat on and talk about trends, I'd be keeping that number in mind if I'm a driver, because it's 3 for 3 so far. A little bit high on the entry there. The 19 Hunter scrubbed a touch of speed, but still okay enough to hold off the truck behind him. That's the number 60, Colton Lane.
Doing a great job, and Nicholas Hunter's back here doing a good job holding his own. Had a bit of a rough practice. He was one of the drivers who wanted to see if during practice if he could experiment starting in a first gear. That didn't work out well, so he kind of said he learned something during practice. But speaking of learning, you know, what I'm kind of confused by, what I'm learning, is during practice I heard a little bit of talk about loose race trucks and how this track was really not much grip. And I don't know if it's just maybe they've rubbered in the track or if it's just a change of conditions since practice started. But boy, it doesn't feel like this truck in this track are very loose compared to other races we've seen.
I've seen a little bit of that, I think, over the course of this race, and how drivers can manage that, how that is early in a run versus late in a run. You hope by the time you get to now, where we're just about halfway through this 75-minute timed race, if you don't have a handle on that kind of progression of how the truck feels, then you're probably not in a great spot. There's a second look at the huge catch on the outside on the replay there. That was almost a bad moment for the truck involved in that one, but caught it, kept it off of the inside wall, so could have been a lot worse for Mr. Zachary Burnt. The 28 truck still on track at a P19.
And that's a weird skill right there, Evan, because that's not as easy to save that truck as it looks like, right? Because if you start yanking too hard to the right, when you bounce off this wall here, if you start correcting too much, you're going to yank it back up the track and get in the way of people. But at the same time, you can't let it drift to the left, and you don't want to hit that inside wall. So that's a very, very tough skill. You got to get off the gas a little bit. You got to barely move the wheel and save that truck. So a nice job by Zachary Burnt to not have further calamity there. Back in, this is Nicholas Hunter. That is Colton Lane and others back here fighting as hard as they can. Looking on back here with the Grinds Racing. You see these guys are just fighting hard for every inch of this racetrack.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there are no freebie laps here at Rockingham. You've got to work hard for every single position, every single lap. Is, again, sounds silly to say we're only just about halfway in, but again, all these timed races, this race could go as many as almost 170 laps. I mean, that's on the high end for some of the racing that you'll see here at Rockingham. I think 3 yellows in the first half, knock on wood, pretty good pace overall. We've had a couple incidents, we've had some close calls, but overall a very competitive and spirited race. You're looking at 2 groups of 2x2, the battle for 12th and the battle for 14th position in the middle of the field. But one thing I did want to mention, you notice the leaderboard on the left-hand side of your screen. Nathan Deering is now up and into the number 2 spot. Not quite fast enough yet to challenge Richard Regan, so there's no battle for the lead quite yet. But that Hyperion Racing Toyota is doing a good job of showing up and showing out in this Hyperion race. Seed 183 started 24th. He is up to P2. It's been a hell of a drive so far for the 5.
Yeah, doing great, especially for a driver we saw, have some contact with the wall a couple times, but doing a great job up here and really on the same pit strategy. This is not like he made a weird pit move. This is like he, pitted early or pitted late. I mean, they're all pitted back on lap 44. So a great job by Nathan to get up here. And the only person really to be off strategy, I think, is Jacob Dunn, put on lap 61, Jeff Evans on 61. But this is just pure driving skills. This is not like, kind of, I don't want to say cheating your way to the front, but, maybe, I don't have a word for it. But sometimes you see those moves in strategy calls. That's not one of those times. Here's Mark Kalin, by the way. We have this thing we say sometimes about Mark. Let's watch this replay first. I'm about to talk about Mark Kalin in a second. That's Nick Schwartz up top, James O'Brien. That was close contact right ahead of, or up top of Mark Kalin. Mark has this phrase that maybe we've helped him have over the couple seasons called Mark Kalin racetracks. It's more the older racetracks, the ones that just sort of requires a bit more of finesse. And this feels like a Mark Kalin style racetrack right here. And he's kind of showing as he almost got in the back into James O'Brien. But he's up here running in P10, has had a pretty successful season. And by the way, Evan, he's moved his camera so we can't see the full back shot anymore. But breaking news, we're now, in week 6, Mark Kalin has finally opened the box to the Titanic Lego set.
Slow but steady progress. We'll take it.
Titanic.
Exactly. It is a time commitment. I just started my Lego Ferrari Technic the other night, so I'm through 3 bags on that. And when you start the Technic ones, the first couple bags is just a lot of nuts and bolts and gears and the stuff that makes you miserable. So we're currently in the miserable stage. I'm excited to, that it'll actually start looking like a race car at some point. But
how many bags are there? Out of curiosity?
It's 10 bags, so it's
okay.
It's decent, for Technic size, but it is nowhere near the monstrosity that the Titanic is.
Yeah, he was happy to get it started, and of course he gets a lot of jest from the others in the league who build Lego because Bradley Holly built like 3 new Lego sets last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And Mark, of course, working on a much bigger one. But back to the race here. Watch this a moment right here. This is a bit of contact between Kalin and Nick Schwartz, and both drivers did a great job of not making that worse.
That's been the key tonight is there's been incidents where it could have gotten really ugly. And overall, these drivers have been doing a pretty good job of taking care of each other. That's not to say we haven't had our moments. It's not to say that there is still some drama and excitement to come, because look at this battle for what is about number 11 on back. Nicholas Hunter front of it all. Everybody else trying to chase down the number 19 truck. Colton Lane cleared him on the outside that lap, and look how high they're all going. Everybody, even the trucks on the bottom of the 2 wide, want the bottom to be the middle of the road. They are really washing up in the center of 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 the opposite. They wash up a touch, but more trucks want the bottom to middle line down at this end.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note for some of these drivers, this could be the first or maybe second time they're seeing this track. Oh, those were 3 wide. That's Jacob Dunn on the bottom. He's going to complete the pass, I believe. Yep, he does. Gets it back to 2 wide there. But for a lot of drivers, Evan, this could be the first or second time they're seeing this track. Remember, this track, of course, not currently on the NASCAR Cup schedule. This year, it went back on the Truck and Xfinity calendar. So, it's been raced there, but many, many years this was not on the Cup schedule. And as far as iRacing is concerned, when a truck is not, or when a track permit is not on the schedule, it tends not to get as much use as the tracks on the schedule. Like right now, for the off week, in iRacing, the next gen cars or the Gen 7 cars are at Kentucky. I don't know the last time we raced at Kentucky. So for these drivers, same thing for Rockingham. There's really not been that many races here. This could be the first time they're seeing this track and dealing with the difficulties that this track presents.
There are some tracks, cult classics, if you will, right? Where, even though they're not in the official rotation, there's going to get a lot of repetition, right? Chicagoland, for example, right? Not an active track. Kentucky, but I still see a lot of series use them. Rockinham's a fun track. It's a well-beloved track by many, but I don't know that most leagues are adding Rockingham to their calendar. Right now, maybe a little bit more, right? With the resurgence, its return to at least NASCAR national touring level competition. Okay, maybe, but over the course of the last 6-7 years, how many series points races have you run on iRacing here at the Rock? Probably not a ton, and I think that ties into it. That is just the level of comfortability, just laps logged on tracks like this. And again, there's no better opportunity to learn a racetrack than to do it in a race and in a competitive setting, and that's what we've been seeing so far here tonight. I know the title sponsor of this race, the official name is the Hyperion Racing 183, but so far it's been the Richard Regan Jr. 183. He has still led every single lap in this race since he took over the number one position way back on lap number 9. I know you don't see laps, you just see the clock top left. For context, we're about to go on lap number 90, so cruise control for the 56.
Yeah, and something else I'll bring up coming back to that topic about the use of this track. Remember, this is a rescheduled race due to some conflicts from a few weeks ago. So, you know, the official truck races happened at this track about 4 weeks ago now. So a lot of times during the week, wherever the SimGamingExpo Truck Series is going to run, these drivers could go do official races and they could get that little bit of practice in those shorter races. But that's not the case this week. The trucks this week are not racing at Rockingham, and so very different experience there as well. Well, I think what we should do is go ahead and do a Team Miracle Flow race update. Let's take a look at the Team Miracle Flow cars and see where they are currently. This is Jeff Evans in that very bright, sort of psychedelic number 51 Evan. We saw him, of course, have the incident with his dad earlier, and Jeff is currently trying to run through the field here, running back a little bit, trying to get some space. He's actually off the pit strategy, Evan. He pitted back on lap 61. So he has about 15 lap newer tires than the rest of the field.
That is interesting. He's kind of the spearhead of that effort, running back into the number 17 spot. Everybody else, for the most part, ahead of him on the same strategy. Also worth noting, Jacob Dunn, Andrew Sharp. Those are also trucks who are on the same strategy. Moving up the road, how about 14th spot for the 171 machine? Nicholas Schwartz not on the same strategy as his teammate. He pitted with the leaders 49 laps ago and would certainly be due to come down pit road the next time. He's up 7 spots from where he started, so pretty good night so far for the 171 as he's trying to hold off a challenge from Walter.
Now we'll go up through the field a little bit, find P3. This is Bradley Holly. Came into tonight second in points, currently running third in position. Brad was excited to have this track on the schedule and is doing a pretty great job of it. I see that truck's move around a little bit, hoping to gain some spots on Richard Regan, because both before and after the drop points, he is behind Regan in the points. And the last of the Miracle Flow machines is Doug Evans, currently sitting on pit road. Unfortunately, had that incident back early in the race, and him and his son both involved. Doug got a hard lick into the wall.
Yeah, still down there serving the penalty that he was given for a mandatory pit stop. But that's a look at your Miracle Flow team update. Miracle Flow is more than just hair care. It's built for the bold. Born in Rochester, New York in 2015, Miracle Flow was created out of a vision and necessity to level up the flow and the lifestyle that comes with it. Made right here in the USA, our products are crafted for quality and performance you can feel. Whether you're lined up with the boys getting ready to go to war or stepping out looking sharp, Miracle Flow keeps you looking fresh and feeling unstoppable. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, just real results that speak for themselves. Miracle Flow, because your flow isn't just a style, it's a statement. Well, trucks on pit road. Evan Williams, Zachary Williams down pit road this time after about 50 laps on the run. There is an estimated, if this race were to stay green, about 67 laps to go in this race. So pit stop would certainly be necessary. I think the question is, would everybody be able to make it that distance with only one more stop?
Yeah, so I think we're Zach Williams. I don't think this is scheduled. I thought right before the team update, I thought we saw a black flag for Zach Williams. So I'm not sure if how that's related to pit stop here. But obviously for Evan, that's a short pit stop that is on schedule. Mike Toomer is now coming down, so yeah, you're right. These could be the beginning of scheduled green flag pit stop. I think Zach Williams may have had some damage to get fixed. Here's Mike Toomer, by the way. Watch this. Oh, hello, wall. That old country song. Well, Mike Toomer to sing it and end out of the inside wall.
And he just got 4 tires and fuel added the 42. I think we're fortunate to not have gotten a yellow with that one because that thing was all the way around and, in my opinion, on the racing surface down the backstretch. But iRacing, the sim determines what is and what isn't a yellow. There's no human error involved in that. It's some sort of math equation. So Barney and the rest of the crew say no yellow. We stay green. Toomer's gotten his 4 tires to the fuel, but he is still down in pit road. You can see the live timer continuing to count up. So he's there for damage repairs. Lesser of a hit there for the number 9 of Jacob Watson. He's in the wall again now. So that second look was a replay top of your screen, and then with live action, just rode the wall all the way down the back straightaway. So he is way off the pace, and there is something seriously wrong right now with the 9 truck.
It could be he's hit the wall one too many times and sort of maybe has put some real damage to the right side of that truck. Look at him fighting the wheel here. Yeah. Oh, boy, that wheel has got a weird angle to it. But, hey, let me say this for Watson. One of the newer racers, one of the newer members of the league. But what a skill that is, Evan. He had the awareness to keep that on the wall, right? Both times he's hit the wall in that replay we saw, there were trucks on the inside. He easily could have tried to yank that off the wall and been in the way. But instead, look at him, he's going to try to get up top. He's going to try to let the faster trucks go. And is trying very hard to not be the cause of the next caution.
Well, I mentioned earlier that all the runs had been about the same. This is now definitively the longest green flag run that we've seen. So sometimes the trends aren't always indicators of what is going to happen every single time. But what I can tell you is for the leaders, they've been out there on 60-lap old tires to this point. That's the longest run we've seen at any point. So they are by far and large driving with the worst handling trucks right now than they have at any other point during this race. So does that mean things are going to get uncomfortable? Who knows? Richard Regan, who's been the pace of the field, his last lap was a 25.598. His best lap of the race was a 24.0. So, but a second and a half total tire fall off, old tires to new.
Yeah. By the way, good news, bad news. Nathan Deering, good news. Last time by was faster than Richard Regan Jr. Bad news, it was by less than 1/10 of a second. So it's going to be hard to make up that gap. But, hey, that's a motivation boost, right? That's a confidence boost. If you can find out you're faster than leader, that'll sort of put a smile on your face and make you want to race a little harder the rest of the way.
And now we just... Oh, sideways, you saw the smoke there. Good save at a turn 4. Thought for sure that truck was going around. Was it the 48 who caught it? You saw the smoke like there was a wreck, but it was a good save. And we stay green right as I was about to say. You're just kind of waiting now for the next shoe to drop. What's next? There's the touch. Truck got a little bit loose, but it was the second bit of contact that I thought was going to send him around, but he was able to hold it down. That's the big thing there. More pit stop service going on. Reese Bogue is in. Colton Easterday is in. They are now inside of the window to be able to go to the end of this race on fuel. Thomas Sink, Ted Lowendick down pit road. So for the first time tonight, green flag pit cycle.
Yeah, it's always fun to see, and it's a great motivation and a boost for everyone in this race. I think that you got to the point of green flag pit stops to see who does what here. Thomas Sink is now coming around pit road. A long, winding pit road, by the way. There are definitely some stalls here on the track, Evan, where it feels like it's not beneficial to you. I am not a fan of this stop right here, and not what Tom's doing wrong, but of that stall specifically. It's on the curve. It's harder to hit. I would want to actually probably, if you could pick stalls in iRacing, I would pick one of the back stalls and have a kind of a straight line entry.
Yeah, it is, anything that makes it different. As you see the number 19 machine down pit road as well. It's Deering, it's Holly, it's Regan, it's O'Brien. So the leader down and more. The Phoenixes of the world, right? The other tracks, the Bristols, where you get something different on pit road. All you're doing is asking for mistakes. And right now, the man who has been mistake-free needs a clean pit stop. So he qualified third. He has the third to last pit box. No problems getting into the stall for the 56 of Regan. You're going to see the rights go up first. Now the truck drops. Left side's going to go up in a moment. It'll be 4 tires and a fuel. That's going to be the decision for everybody in the field. Straight shot off pit road, beautifully executed. And now he looks to cycle back through to the lead. He just needs this green flag pit cycle to wrap itself up without any complications.
Yeah, I'm not really a surprise about it. Mark Kalin has taken the lead during this pit cycle. Mark loves to stay out. He loves to kind of push that gas tank as far as it will go. We saw it last week at Kansas. We're seeing it again this week, so Mark's going to get credit for leading some more laps here. He's got Jeff Evans right behind him. You see Evans, and he's going to make a pass on the inside. Now, is Evans pitting here, or is he trying to get the lead? I'm not sure. That's not Evans.
We'll see
Sorry,
what happens.
Wrong. What? That was the wrong Miracle Flow car. That was maybe Bradley Holly there.
There's a couple of them out there. Keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. You see Barney's on pit road, still waiting on your top 3 to come in. That's going to be Mark Kalin, Jeff Evans, and Matt Scherf. They may be hoping to just try to run this out as long as they can, maybe catch a yellow. Hope that, okay, everybody who pitted may have old tires by that point, may want fresh tires. Scherf's going to be coming in this time. I don't think there's much more of a window either for Mark Kalin, up front. He's going to be due to pit road soon. Jeff Evans is the one who pitted on the last yellow when most of the field did not. He could still stay out there for another 18 laps or so, Derrick. That's not going to be enough for Jeff Evans to get to the end of this race, but again, could be enough for him to feel like it's worthwhile to stay out and hope to catch a timely yellow.
Yeah, because what happens maybe if, let's say, 10, 15 laps from now that yellow does come out, the question you have for the others, for Regan, for Lowendick, for Sink, on down the field, is do they feel as though they need to come down 15 laps later? But never mind, he's going to stay on schedule here and just pit. Now, I personally, if I had the plus 18 laps, Evan, I would have used him, honestly. I would have seen if I could have made something happen, but Jeff apparently feels like now that pitting is necessary. So he'll come down pit road, and that just leaves Mark Kalin as the last one on the track who isn't pitted. Watch Stacy Hunter in the SimGamingExpo Truck Series. Got it sideways. A little bit of a drift, and I'm sure that is too fast entering pit road.
Yeah, not how you would draw that one up. And again, when you don't race at a track a lot, how many times have these guys taken green flag pit stops at Rockingham? Sideways there. I warned about that transition a little bit earlier in this race. Thought maybe Evans would want to push it a little bit, but not going to be the case there. Kalin nearly wrecked it on the pit road entry. As there goes the 51 machine. Looks like too fast on exit for Jeff Evans. He's got a black flag. Stacy Hunter also with a black flag. So Stacy Hunter back down to pit road to serve a penalty. So that's going to put the neat little bow on this pit cycle. And before it all started, Richard Regan was in a comfortable spot. He's going to now find himself nearly 4 full seconds ahead of the next closest driver in a Kyle Larson-esque performance that it still has 20 minutes left on the clock. That's going to equate to about 50 trips around this Rockingham Speedway. So even though he's been on cruise, has survived the green flag pit cycle, which is always a risk, there is still way too much time to start counting the eggs before they're hatched.
Yeah, I went back and looked, by the way. Jeff Evans, member, pit road speed is 40. Got clocked at 41 at the pit exit line. So unfortunately, even a 1 mile an hour is speeding. And now it'll put him, you see there, but not stop and hold penalty. Came down there and is now away. So for Jeff, that's going to be unfortunate. It's going to probably end, any likelihood of maybe even finishing on the lead lap here at Rockingham. So we'll take a look. But here's the battle for fourth. This is Steve Baker and Bradley Holly going at it side by side, door to door. And Baker's trying to make this pass on the outside. I said in the pre-race, I thought the up top, the high side was the way to make the pass. But Bradley Holly is making it difficult.
Bradley Holly's doing his job. And 3 wide with the 11 truck, slow lap machine occupying the outside line. Steve Baker goes high to middle in all of that. And I think that's finally going to be the spot to maybe shake off the challenge. But Bradley Holly's still there now. The 184 tucks back in line. Nathan Deering was starting to look around. So great 3-truck battle for number 4, 5, and 6 on the racetrack. Even Thomas Sink in the 48 left of your screen up there. Even he's still a part of this battle, not safe.
Yeah, speaking of part of this battle, by the way, the difference between pre-pit stop and post-pit stop, look at P2. Ted Lowendick is now up in P2. That was not the case, I don't believe, before the pit stops. So Ted must have made up a lot of time on pit road as Bradley Hollins give, man, I'm in a hip check. Maybe just a boop, a how do you do, a poke to see Baker there in the middle of the corner.
And you just start looking around. Every shot we take, you're looking at the trucks. Who's handling well? Who's starting to get aggressive? Where is the trouble going to come from if there are some late race fireworks to be had here in Rockingham? If I had to put down money on if we were going to have a green flag pit cycle tonight or not, I would have said no. So this green flag run has been so impressive. We've gotten lucky a couple times, right? We've had trucks into the outside wall. We've had some contact where maybe there should have been a yellow. And as you look off of the back of Sync, here to the inside goes Bradley Holly. Side by side, a battle for third on the racetrack as Derrick and Baker watch on. Drag race down to turn 1.
Yeah, doing a great job. We'll see again how this works. Bradley Holly is kind of, I don't want to use the word aggressive, and it comes with a negative context, but is definitely pushing pretty hard here and making up some spots while doing it. Doing a great job here. Is now up to P3. Want to say hello, by the way, to everyone in the YouTube chat. William Brennan's out there. No, not that William Brennan. That not the Supreme Court Justice. He's not been with us for a while, but William Brennan is out there, part of Hyperion Racing, rooting on his teammates. Edward Pelch was in the chat earlier hanging out with us, so if you want to have a good time, go in and interact, say hello, and be part of the conversation. But look at this again now. This is Thomas Sink, Steve Baker. Man, it feels ever since Steve Baker got that little bit of contact from Brad when he was on the outside of the corner, he's kind of fallen back a little bit.
Has slipped back a little bit since then, and again, maybe these drivers that have been so used to the fact that they were going 20 laps yellow, they might have pushed it a little bit much early in the last run. Maybe the truck struggled late in the run because of that, or you just didn't know what the truck was going to handle like on a 60-lap run because you hadn't seen it really over the course of this race. Maybe you didn't practice for that scenario. You learn a lot about your truck when you go through a long green flag stretch. And again, if this thing can stay green to the end of this race with 16 minutes and change left on the clock, it'll be just as long of a run. It will probably be about 60 laps total. So at least it gives these drivers a little bit of foresight on how these trucks are going to handle, how the handling is going to degrade over the course of this run. Does it get a little bit touchy on exit? We've seen trucks loose. We've seen trucks tight. I don't know if I've been able to kind of build correlation to are they tight early, loose late, or vice versa. We've seen basically all kinds of struggles over the course of the night, and this is the racetrack that is playing its mind games on you, right? It's kind of tough to read.
Yeah, I think the only correlation I've really made between loose and tight tonight has got to be the lines they're running, right? We've seen definitely for sure that the trucks who want to run that yellow line through the corners really do tend to tighten up, especially out of the corners. So that's really the only correlation I've been able to build of an if-then statement, right? For you Excel or spreadsheet nerds, the if-then, if this happens, then do that. Well, if right at bottom of track and corner, then truck will get tight. Beyond that, I don't see too much correlation. In fact, I think probably of all the tracks we've been to so far in the SimGamingExpo Truck Series, as we're now on week 6, this has been, I think, handling-wise, one of the calmer races. We haven't seen too many people really getting, really wickedly loose, really just kind of do anything crazy. It's been pretty calm overall. I mean, all the wheel inputs tonight have been pretty chill. So, a really good race. And I think the point you hit on was really accurate. There were a lot of drivers concerned about this track and the racing it would produce, but it has produced amazing side-by-side green flag racing for most of the night.
It has been, and you look forward to what's coming up. Obviously, if this result can hold, things look good for the Richard Regan Jr. camp. Came into tonight with a 13-point lead over Bradley Holly, a race winner at 3-5 so far. Derrick mentioned, of course, the drop week could be added into the math. We'll see that on our points starting next week. That's only going to make Regan's, advantage grow, because it's going to take his worst result out of it and leave him with a higher percentage of race wins. If this result stands and you take a drop week out, so you're only going to count 5 of your 6 races, your best 5, then that means 4 of his 5, if he wins this race, would be race wins. I mean, he is really trying to make sure that this thing's wrapped up well ahead of the Michigan race at the start of June.
Yeah, for anyone who wants to to win a championship, that's the goal, right? Is to make sure that you have it wrapped up before you get to the last race. Don't put the stress on yourself. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just get in there and have it done. So he has this week, next week at Charlotte, and then the Nashville Super Speedway. See if he can accomplish that goal.
'51 car doing everything he can on the inside of the racetrack to try to stay in this one. Jeff Evans, his night has not come to fruition like he had thought it would. 2 laps down, 22nd spot. Of course, the contact earlier with Doug Evans, the father-son duo got together. Jeff certainly ends up with the lesser of 2 evils in that, but stuck laps down. At least he's got a good view of the battle in front of him. You can say at least that much. Jacob Dunn and Mark Kalin battling for position, and that's going to be Kalin making the pass on Dunn. That was for 9th position on the racetrack. Both of these trucks, I think, have good things to say about this race. Mark started 28th. He's going to drive for the moment to a single-digit spot in P9. Jacob Dunn under pressure again. That's the lap truck of Evans. This is not for position. Jacob started back in 19th. He's up in 10th. So these two have stood the test of time and getting rewarded with it.
Yeah, they are. Everyone's doing a great job, as I said here, but you're right. Really being aggressive, being persistent, doing a great job. Of course, Nathan Deering in the 5 here. Up. Look at all those spots. Up 20-plus spots. Actually, even 20 right now. I mean, you mentioned all the names earlier. That's impressive. Again, and I'm not saying it's a knock, but typically I'm just impressed because when you see a driver who hit the wall a couple times early, like Deering did, it sort of really messes with that truck, right? It messes with the handling. It messes with the driver confidence. It can maybe mess with the speed of the truck. And it's hard then to think that that same driver, is up this far in the field, 45 minutes later doing so well. So it's not a knock on Nathan or his skills. You see a truck up top with it, maybe Stacy Hunter, or maybe, no, that would have been Bradley Holly, up in that truck. And Deering closed the gap quickly. But again, it's not a knock on Deering, Evan. I'm not meaning it that way. It's just I'm surprised the truck is behaving that well after a couple of wall hits.
You don't really see rewind 10 years ago, you used to see some really funky things, right? A truck gets some damage and all of a sudden it's got more grip or got better turning ability than somebody else. You don't see that on the sim these days, and I don't think that's really the case of it, but that's the first thing to think of anytime somebody's out there doing their best with the damaged truck. But I think if you're driving a smart race, if you're not overdriving the tires, if you're being responsible about it, that can make up for a lot of the difference that a damaged race truck would hinder you by. And I think that's just discipline. And also, to the cap, kind of sticking with it, right? I mean, truck gets a touch of damage. There's a handful of drivers who are out of this race. Doug Evans, Dustin Bumgarner, they've been on pit road and are effectively out of it. They won't count as retirees. Patrick Calgill will. He took it behind the garage. He's going to finish 32nd in this field. So there's something to be said, and credit is worth kind of tipping the hat there for sticking with it, continuing on as you jump on board with the number 4 runner. That's Nathan Deering, working with the VR goggles, as always, with the live look in.
Yeah, VR is becoming more and more popular. I think as time goes on with iRacing, some of the hiccups or the software issues get worked out. Some of the drivers have found ways to increase the battery life, or maybe as newer headsets are coming out, the battery life is getting better. So we're not hearing about some of the issues about longer races being a pain, on as far as technology-wise as it once was. And boy, that debate of VR versus triples versus single monitor, I mean, that's never going to go away. I think, right now the prevailing argument is probably more like triples versus VR. But it seems like when one driver loves it, that's what they stick with. I as a triples user, Evan, I could not imagine racing in VR. It would just be very confusing for me, I think. But opposite, I'm sure, for Nathan, if we tried to put him on a rig with triple monitors, that would be confusing. And that's something that Richard Reed and I talked about tonight pre-race. Some of these drivers are going to do a live race at the SimGamingExpo in September. And we were talking about how different it will be for some drivers, right? Remember, Richard races in VR as well. How different will it be going and sitting down in a pre-built rig that's not yours, right? I mean, you see it every year at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola finale, and I'm sure you see those drivers have a hard time at first kind of getting adjusted, right?
It's half the thing is, what are you comfortable with, right? I mean, if you took Richard out of his VR goggles, put him on triples, put him on an ultra wide, put him on the exact same rig that somebody else would come into one of these races and win with, he may win the race, but he's going to feel a little bit off, right? And if you give him a month and a year and 5 years, eventually you're going to get used to it. So it's not as much of, is there a legitimate, advantage to one or the other? It's just comfort level. And to your point, you see that with the eNASCAR finale. We saw it even just the past week, a couple of weeks ago on Coke, when one of the drivers had to compete from a different rig because I think it was Garrett Lowe was racing from overseas and participated in one of his BS competition. I think it was his team owner's rig, but not his. And he ran okay. I think it was a mid-20s finish. But the first thing he said was he was just uncomfortable with it. And again, that's not a knock on the rig. It's not a knock on the specs. It's just comfort level. And you'll see the same thing, I'm sure, in the real life, right? You take somebody from one NASCAR truck to a different truck from a different team, they're going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Of course. So remember, live at the SimGamingExpo, plans for multiple live races to happen. Some of the drivers in this league are not only attending, but I believe are planning on racing there. So another one of the great events. Many more streamers have been announced. You should check out that website. A lot of cool stuff planned there. And of course, I always love to think when you go to these events, and you've seen it more than I have, the number of drivers who are going to feel comfortable on stage taking off their shoes in public always astounds me.
Yeah, I think once you get in your bubble, right, inside sometimes literally the bubble of triple monitors that kind of encase you around the crowd, they're there, but once you're on track, you kind of zone a lot of it out, right? I've been surprised actually by how many drivers have been on those stages and been in those moments and not really let the moment get to them a ton. I think it's more so what is leading up to it than the race itself, right? Once you're in the race, your rig, not your rig, whatever the case may be, you're racing. It's really just the prep leading into it, right? Your practice time, how comfortable are you, how you're talking with the team, all of those extracurriculars is what is always hard to shake. As you see the 30 to James O'Brien, nice move up on the 24 of Andrew Sharp. They will swap out places for the number 7 and 8 spot. Further up the road, battle for third is still ongoing. It's about 7.2 seconds off of the race leader. It's your pole sitter, Bradley Holly, who started in first, raced it against your 24th place starter, Nathan Deering.
Yeah, as we now hit about the 6-minute mark, you got to think, both these drivers are really hoping for like a last-second yellow so they can close that gap on our race leader. It'll be very interesting to see if they can make anything happen with it, but as a driver, you just kind of hope to always close that gap and make something happen. But, I mean, right now, Regan has an impressive lead. He's almost 4 seconds up on Ted Lowendick. As you said, he's more on these drivers, almost 7 seconds back to these two drivers. You see on back a little bit of a battle happening here. This is, by the way, now the battle for 19th. This is going on, and that's happening right above Bradley Holly.
Yeah, look out, right in the mix of all of this. Doyle Lawrence pulls up in line, going to get a shove there from Deering. I know the battle was slowly simmering down, but Nathan Deering still wanted to get something out of this. He thought he could race for third and just caught the lap traffic there at the worst time. And that's going to basically double or triple the gap between Bradley Holly and Nathan Deering. And I don't want to say it takes him completely out of it, but that 5's really got a long shot now with about 13 laps worth of time left on the board to be able to get up there. It's one thing we haven't talked a ton about tonight, Derrick, despite the long green flag run, is lap traffic and how the lap traffic interacts with the leaders. 4 truck into the wall. That's a lap truck, so it's not for position. Has not been a huge headache tonight, but right now it is for Holly and Deering.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One, you're right. We didn't really talk about lap trucks. I sort of hit it earlier and kind of forgot when I talked about how short this track is and how there's not such thing as a quiet space around here, right? There's always going to be someone around you. Well, unfortunately, this late in the run, it's going to also include lapped cars. What I was thinking about in my head as we saw that shot live a minute or two ago was maybe I would have loved to have been kind of a fly on the wall in Nathan Deering's sim room when that lapped car got in the way. It's always interesting how drivers behave and how they react mid-race, right? Like some drivers get very animated. I talked about that last week, how we kind of hate to be on webcam while we're driving. Some drivers, when they get pretty vocal, and some drivers are more like that kind of like that ice man, that cold, they just don't react to anything. Well, I wondered which one of those Nathan Deering was, but right now he's up in that wall again, maybe just a little maybe that did get under his skin. It feels like ever since that car got in the way, his line has changed, his pace has changed, his aggressiveness has changed, and he's having a harder time here catching Bradley Holly. Ooh, look at those inputs on the webcam there.
You can see he's working hard. A lot of those kind of seesaw actions on the wheel, I like to say, right? It's not just a gradual turn in, turn off. He's doing that to try to feel where the truck is in the corner. And again, not only did the lap traffic drop him off of the battle with Bradley Holly, but maybe more worried about now the challenge, because Nathan Deering could be going from dreaming about a third to maybe worried about a P6. It would still be a good result in the end for all the ground that this guy has made up, but he's got the 2 with Steve Baker, the 40 to Thomas Sink all over him. And as we drop inside of 3 minutes to go, basically now beyond the point of no return, if a yellow flag were to come out, not likely to be able to restart this race within time. So we're either looking for the white or the next flag would end this race.
Yeah, and of course, if you're Richard Regan, you're probably okay with either, to be honest with you. But, I mean, when you have, I mean, that gap to Lowendick has cut a little bit, by the way. If you look on the board, you see Richard Regan, pardon me, he's up in traffic. We talked about that as that's happening in a different battle. But look at this again. Deering is still under attack from Baker. But if you're Richard Regan, you'd probably be happy the caution came out. I mean, when in the race early and give it to me, I'll take it. You know, so keep that in mind. But boy, this is being quite the battle. Thomas Sink, of course, finished 4th last week. Remember, he told us last week he went and what did he say? He went to the pizza place that was, quote, better than frozen pizza. My goodness, that was hot. That wasn't frozen. That was a spicy move right there.
That was the most aggressive pizza I've ever heard on a show, and they cut you off right in the middle of it as they are trying to make a mess of these trucks in the closing moments. Just a little bit of sprinkles on top of what has been a pretty good race and a surprisingly calm race in the second half. Is there any more surprises left in the battle for 4th on back? As Nathan Deering has dropped back into the number 7 spot, it has become a worst-case scenario. The 5 losing all of that ground here late. Smacks the wall that time off at 2. Maybe a shot to get back at O'Brien as we close in on a minute to go.
Yeah, closing on 1 minute to go. And you're right, for Deering, it has become a rough ride. Here's Richard Regan finally around some of the traffic, has a bit of a gap on either side. Evan Williams will be the next truck up now with 1 minute to go. There should be 2 laps to go right here from Barney to Flagman. And Richard Regan will close on Evan Williams pretty quickly here and make the pass pretty safely.
Around on the inside, he'll make his way around Evan Williams, who's going to drop a second lap down. He will not be able to get all the way to Steve Loving, who's about a straightaway ahead and sits in the number 11 spot as the final driver being scored on the lead lap in this race. And now you just look for when does the white flag come out. Lap time's about 24 seconds in range, so probably going to be flying the next time out for Richard Regan Jr. And again, what a season it has been thus far for the driver of the number 56 Toyota, a race winner in Bristol, and now has won the last 2 consecutively after taking victories in Texas and now Kansas. But up front, bottom right of your screen for the leader, is it going to be the white flag? It is 1 lap to go. Meanwhile, top screen, side by side, a battle for 5th between James O'Brien and Steve Baker. That one is going to go the distance. We'll follow that one all the way to the start-finish line. But for the final time in 3 and 4, how about 4 out of 6 tries? It's another Wednesday night race win as Richard Regan wins the Hyperion Racing 183 at Rockingham. Final quarter for O'Brien P5 as he hangs on ahead of Steve Baker.
That was a battle on the bottom of your screen. I thought for a moment maybe Steve Baker was going to try the old bump and run. He got right up to the back end of O'Brien, but backed off and no contact was made.
Good challenges, good fights all over this racetrack, but in the end, only one driver stands the test of time. And again, he is incredible. 4 wins in 6 starts and an incredible 3rd in a row. A well-deserved burnout for that man right there. Richard Regan Jr. is back in Premier Sim Racing victory lane again.
Yeah, great job by Richard. Great performance, great job, great win, and another sticker goes on that wall behind him.
Celebration will continue here at The Rock. Let's take a look at tonight's race results and get you set to talk with some of your top finishers, because the Riga de Bogue Motorsports post-race show is coming up next. But final margin of victory a lot closer in the end as he milked that lead down to about 1.9 seconds over Ted Lowendick in second. What a result for the Whataback Racing duo. He and Bradley Holly come home 2-3. It's a good result for them. We'll try to get a word with them all in just a few. Thomas Sink comes home at fourth, and James O'Brien ends up at a top 5 spot. The Solpeck Precision Racing number 2 is Steve Baker's in 6th, Nathan Deering in 7th, Mark Kalin in 8th, Andrew Sharp in 9th, and Jacob Dunn rounds out your top 10.
Moving back into P11, Steve Loving, part of Neon Riga de Bogue Motorsports, with Colton Eastday back in 12th, and Drew Wilkie finishes 13th. These are trucks one lap down or more as of this point. Brandon Walter, Colton Lane, Nicholas Schwartz, Zachary Burnt, all one lap down. Evan Williams, 2 laps down, as is Jeff Evans, and Matt Scherf to round out the top 20.
And all of these drivers get multiple laps down. 21st to Doyle Lawrence, Nick Hunter, 22nd to Mike Toomer, Stacy Hunter, and Reese Bogue through the number 25 spot. Robert Barney, Jacob Watson, Zachary Williams, Steven Bruner, Doug Evans through your top 30. That leaves only Dustin Bumgarner and Patrick Cowgill behind there. Well, that's a look at your full race results. Let's head to our Riga de Bogue Motorsports post-race show, brought to you by Riga de Bogue Motorsports. Speed is just the starting point. Success is built through discipline, focus, and development. At Riga de Bogue Motorsports, our iRacing coaching is built to develop winners. Their one-on-one training, we focus on the fundamentals that turn fast drivers into champions. Smart racecraft, disciplined decision-making, and pressure-proof performance. This isn't about chasing quick results, it's about building the foundation for lasting success. Riga de Bogue Motorsports, developed for wins, built for championships. And I think that is a perfect descriptor for tonight's race winner, pressure-proof performance. For your race winner here at Rockingham in the Hyperion Racing 183, Richard Regan Jr. We will talk with him in just a moment. I think we'll kick things off while we wait for his celebrations. Derrick, Bradley Holly, P3, let's try him.
Yeah, let's go ahead and grab Bradley Holly first. Richard Regan notifies he needs to go ahead and make a run to the little racers room. So we'll come back to him. But let's first catch up with Bradley Holly. Brad, P3 run tonight. I could hear you over the radio. You were A, stoked about the quality of racing tonight, but B, I'm guessing you're stoked about a P3 finish.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely a little worn out, too, because this track is definitely brutal on the wrists and elbows tonight, and I'm going to be suffering tomorrow when I work out.
Yeah, I started to say, I bet you got to work out tonight. This is a pretty abrasive track, was a word we used tonight. Not a track that's used very often. Overall, a pretty fun race.
Absolutely. That final stop was extremely fun for me. I don't know how Deering felt, but drag racing him out of pit lane to do that final run was a lot of fun. And then me and him were pushing real hard and burning our tires up. That's why Teddy got away from me. But it was just a fun race in general.
So post race last week, I got a little bit of flack because apparently in a broadcast we did not notice that Bradley Holly had moved his Lego sets around. So we were trying to guess during the broadcast. We had our producer kind of use an Intellustrator. But do you want to show us real quick what's moved, what's different in the room?
All of the helmets used to be directly behind me and over my shoulders. And I swapped everything that used to be over here. Well, I put the helmets on that side just because I started running out of room and had to put up another shelf to make room for when they release more helmets and I build more sets.
So I have a task for you, by the way. It came up, we were talking in the mid-race during the green flag run about the picture of the smoker you've put in Discord. And my buddy here, Evan Posocco, says he's just graduated to grilling chicken. So
grilling chicken.
Yes, we need you to give some advice and some tips on how to graduate beyond grilling the chicken. Evan, do you want to defend yourself here?
It's early days, okay? We're getting there. We're not at Smoky to Beat level, but we're tiptoeing.
Hey, grilling is where I started. So I've been grilling food on a charcoal grill since I was probably 10.
Yeah, well, Evan's a
And
little older than 10, so he's getting a late start.
that's all right. That's not. It's never too late to start. You know, Evan, if you ever need some advice, you can message me. I'm not the best at it, but I can give you advice.
I've heard the Discord is a good place, so I might pop in.
Yeah, please do.
All right, Brad. Well, listen, great run tonight and a P3 finish, and we'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is Bradley Holly finishing P3. Let's go ahead and catch up with another driver who had a great night. And Ted, I think it maybe had this race gone another 10 minutes, it felt like you were running down our race leader.
I was. He was getting larger and larger out the front window, but he built such a big gap at the beginning of that run right before the pit stop, and he added to it right out of the way, and did my best to catch him, but just needed probably 3 or 4 more minutes. Would have been pretty fun, but I still had a good time, so hopefully you guys did too.
Yeah, so, Evan and I had a talk in the broadcast about how Rockingham's not a commonly used track, and it's kind of trying to get back into the NASCAR schedule on a national level. I was curious, how many times have you run here? Is this your first race?
It's the second league race I've had here. I won the last Class B car that we had here. I just like it. It's fun. It's not like you hold the throttle the whole time. You have to use a little bit of brake, a little bit of throttle input to just rotate the car. It's fun. And it's old, and so it's rough, and it's tire wear, and yes, it's all the stuff racers love to have. So
I was going to ask, obviously, some people know, maybe some don't. You come from a road racing, background, at least on iRacing service, kind of where some of us saw you first. When you come to a track that's more abrasive and more about tire wear and braking, do you think there's something about that benefits you as a road racer?
Maybe. I think with the braking, definitely on short tracks, because trail braking is more of a thing. Here it's just you don't want to turn the wheel as much, right? So I was basically diming in both corners, going in as straight as I could, and then once it would rotate in the center, I would just drive off. I wish I could see what my tire wear was, but I can't. So, but I enjoy these. I like the old Atlanta too, because of the same way. It destroys your tires, and it ends up being a conservative. Yeah, you just conserve as best as you can, and then you push to the end. So.
All right. Well, listen. Well, great run tonight. We will see you next week in Charlotte, and have a good week.
You. I wanted to shout out my dad. He's having some surgery tomorrow, so good luck on that, Dad. Yeah, you guys as well. Everybody at Wadaback and Solpec Precision Racing. It's been a fun year so far, so let's keep it up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and I think Evan and I both say good luck, Dad.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that is Ted Lowendick, and then I think Evan, you have caught up with our winner, Richard Regan Jr.
It's right. He's back from the Little Race Winners Room and back in victory lane once more. Let's get over the driver of the number 56 machine, Richard Regan Jr., your race winner here once again. Now 4 race wins on the season. Richard, congratulations. What stood out to you about this one? I mean, a couple of yellows early, but then a remarkably long green flag run to the end here at the Rock.
Yeah, it was nice to get the long runs in tonight. I don't really know. I really despise this place, so I kind of was shocked at the speed I had, but I knew if I just could get out in clean air that was going to be my strongest point. So I just try to get out clean air as quick as I could, and then try to manage that and try to pack air behind me on the guys that were behind me. So, and then once we got that green flag pit stop, we were doing pretty good, and then some lap cars, racing for position. So, they can't really just let me go, and 100% understand that. So kind of made me chew up my tires a little bit, and Teddy was getting the runs, and it was definitely exciting, because if he had another lap or two, we would have been side by side for the lead for sure.
It really tightened up by the end there. Derrick asked the same question to Ted. I'll pose it to you. We were talking about how everyone's driven at Kansas and everyone's driven at Texas and all these other ones through various leagues and various cars. But I mean, the Rock's been on the sim for a while now, basically forever. But it hasn't always been a track that's on league calendars. So how much track time have you had at the Rock? Did you have to put in more practice week of for this event than maybe some of the other ones, or is this a place that you've been just as comfortable at as some other places?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been comfortable here. I've had success here, but I don't really enjoy racing this track. But I wanted to get some good practice time in this week, but just been pretty busy with the league and stuff, so didn't really have an opportunity to. So that's also why I was very surprised at the speed that I had when the practice session went live tonight. So I got to give a huge shout out to Nick Byer for giving me lap times and stuff, and pretty much teaching me a lot on what I need to do to manage my pace and where I got to run. And he's definitely a huge help tonight.
Well, the second half of this season turns to the big tracks. No more Dovers or Bristols, and Rockingham's not that small, but smaller tracks. And I was going to pose the question, does that look like a challenge for you? But you've won at Texas, you've won at Kansas. I assume that means you're looking forward to Charlotte in a week.
Oh yeah, for sure. Charlotte's by far my favorite mile and a half. I guess I can't say that because really Homestead is, but if we're going to talk about the cookie cutters, Charlotte's definitely my favorite. So I'm super excited to go there, and Charlotte always races really good in the trucks, and so it should be a good race to tune into, and hopefully everybody watching tunes in next week.
Richard, we appreciate your time. Again, congratulations on the win, and we look forward to seeing you go for number 5 in a week's time.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to give a shout out to everybody at Regenberg Motorsports, Kaylee Sweet Creations, Mission 22, Neonism Paints, JZ Photography, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Stant Analyzer, everybody that helps support me, and everybody that helps support the league, and everyone that tunes in, and then you guys at Green Flag TV.
There's the words from your race winner. He is now a 4-time winner on the season. Points leader going to continue to pile on the wins, and fitting that it's a Riga de Bogue truck in victory lane for the first time here on the Riga de Bogue Motorsports post-race show. And with that, the Rockingham duel, we'll call it, comes to an end with, again, a surprising long green flag run. I didn't think that we'd be looking at green flag pit stops and tire conservation, Derrick, but every once in a while you get surprised, and pretty impressed with how disciplined the field was over the course of this race.
Yeah, pretty pleasantly surprised, I would agree as well. I was watching Richard's post-race interview there, and he has all the sponsors behind him. Next week, I want him to do like the weatherman style, where he tries to point at the sponsor while he does it. I mean, that's a challenge for Richard to kind of up the post-race experience. Well, yeah, what a great race it was. Clean, but still full of action, full of bumps, full of bangs, full of exciting moments. But overall, a very, very great race.
And I teased it in the conversation with Richard. You talked about it at the top of the show, but a lot of high-speed tracks coming up. Charlotte in a week's time, the Nashville Super Speedway in 2, and then Michigan to close out the season on June the 4th. But it's NASCAR's backyard, so from a racetrack in which some drivers may not have a ton of experience with, Derrick, to a racetrack in which most of the drivers in this field probably did their first official oval racing in street stocks back in the day. The Charlotte Motor Speedway, just about as quintessential intermediate NASCAR racing as you can get.
And hey, good news for these virtual crews. Not much of a drive either, right? Sometimes we go Daytona to Auto Club or Daytona to Vegas. This is pretty quick. Charlotte to Rockingham, a very quick virtual drive for those truck haulers.
Yeah, I don't think the schedule makers on the sim take routing into account, but this is a good week for sure as we return to the Tar Heel State. Until next time, though, that is it for us here tonight from Rockingham. On behalf of our entire team at Green Flag TV, for our friends at Premier Sim Racing, and for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer, Dustin Ollis, for Derrick Watson, and myself, Evan Posocco, I want to say thanks for tuning in, and we hope you catch you in 1 week's time, Wednesday, May the 21st, at iRacing's virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the SimGamingExpo Truck Series can be found exclusively right here on Green Flag TV. Until then, good night from Rockingham, and congratulations, four-time winner this season, Richard Regan, on top again.